Welcome to this podcast today. One of the interesting questions that often comes way is that the role of women in diplomacy. This is a field, whether we like it or not, is often seen as a male-dominated field. But the reality is that women also play a very important role in this, and many uh, trailblazing women in Malaysian diplomacy uh, have made the country proud with their service and handling of diplomacy. So I thought it's a good occasion to invite someone who has done it all, a person that I would consider as someone who's really done some trailblazing in the Malaysian foreign service, who could perhaps help shed light into this issue about the role of women in diplomacy. I have here with me today Datuk Dr Fauziah Taib. As I said, I consider her to be one of the finest diplomats that the country has produced. She is also unique because she has written a few books. That alone puts her in a different category, because very few diplomats actually write books. So I think we have someone who's very interesting here, and I think we would probably see, the unseen parts of diplomacy. Dr. Fazil, welcome.
Thank you.
Right.
You for having me.
All right. So, maybe as a starter, perhaps you could, the lighter part of it, could you tell us where you come from, perhaps, which town you come from? I'm sure that lots of people want to say, hey, she comes from my state or my town, and maybe your school and all those kind of things.
Yeah. I'm from Negeri Sembilan. I live in Seremban. I still go back on weekends. Then I went to King George V in Seremban. Went to University at Ex-Malaysia. Did my master's in University of Paris. My PhD in University of Kent in Canterbury. And then I went back to the law at University of Exeter and also Bristol. So technically, that's
A big picture of all
yeah,
the things. Yeah. Yeah, I remember this. Dr. Fauziah and I think one of the few francophones in the ministry. Both of us were trained in the French language as well. You went to Vichy, right?
No, I was in Paris.
In Paris itself. Okay, all right. Because I went to another town in the French side of the language. So, yeah. Now, perhaps you can, tell us why you actually chose a career in diplomacy, or is it the career chose you?
Okay. Actually, when I was an undergraduate at Australia, this was the first time when they introduced the international relations module.
Oh,
So few of us who joined me later in the ministry, foreign service, um, were in this class. So we did international relations, and after that, we somehow managed to find ourselves in places related to the subject. Apart from that, before I joined the foreign ministry, I was already traveling a lot under the premises of a department.
okay.
I was secretary of a Women's Council Secretariat under the Prime Minister's department. So we went for various kinds of meeting abroad in China, in Austria, in the US, everywhere. So it was just time for me then to move on to apply to get into Wisma.
Okay.
And I managed to do it. And then I moved into many different desks, including the multilateral.
What was your first desk?
My first desk was Western Europe.
Oh, okay. All right. And you were, when you joined, who was KSU at the time?
Oh, what mine is?
Zainal Abidin Sulong, right?
Yes, that's right. I just came back from New York.
Okay. Right. The late Country Zainal Abidin Sulong, a very illustrious diplomat who handled the confrontation, all that,
That's right.
right? Yeah.
That's right.
Uh, yes. So you started with Western Europe and all that, and um, I suppose, like all diplomats, you would have been posted overseas and you must have served in a few countries. Which are those,
Well, I started with as a second secretary in Brussels,
Okay.
embassy in Brussels, and then I moved back for a long time back at capital, and then I became a deputy ambassador in Washington D.C.
Okay.
And I went to Fiji as a high commissioner, and then my last posting was in the Netherlands, also as ambassador.
Ambassador, yeah. Yeah, I remember visiting you in Brussels when you were there.
Yes,
So
you were writing.
yeah, that's when I was still studying France. I
Yeah.
thought I'll just take a trip to
Yes, I
visit you there.
remember that.
I remember that one. Yeah, and I think our path was crossed later, right? You were deputy ambassador in Washington, and then I took your place
Ah,
a
yes.
few years later.
That's
You know, so we were close, but we never actually crossed directly. Uh, but which one was this? Would you consider to be one of the, you know, people would like to know the best posting lah?
Oh, well, every posting has its positive sides. Uh, I suppose I think you might agree with me. I like Washington very much.
Okay.
Because they were the movers and the shakers were there. I managed to get, I mean, virtual, I mean, but in person glimpse of these people like Al Gore, Clinton, Hillary, um, Bush. It's a small town.
Yeah.
There was one time I told my officer, this Georgetown is so small that if you drive, you might knock into somebody very
Famous.
very famous. And at that time, I was at the crossroad, at the T junction, and Albright was crossing the road.
Okay.
I said, look, that's Albright.
That's
So it was so interesting. I mean, at the press club, so many dignitaries would come and we could just come in and listen to the seminars. And then there is the Capitol Hill, where we meet the senators and they take us to their homes and we live with them in Ohio, that kind of place. So I think it's very interesting.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're totally right. Because Washington gives you that thing. It really makes you feel. Because I mean, of course, some people say it's the capital of the universe. Everything is important in Washington. So all those people that many people would know only by name on TV.
Yes.
Like you said, Madeleine Albright. You just met her just driving along, And I remember at one time George Tenet. So I bumped into him again in Georgetown. That's where everyone is there too. Yeah. But Washington DC is also very interesting because it's also a very intellectual town as well. Lots of thinking people there, but it also helps you, I suppose. I know that's what I found. I'm sure you might agree or disagree, but it helps you sharpen your skills as a diplomat. That's right. Right? Yes. Because there were so many things and seminars, and it was free for us to join in. And I'm making a point that when I attend all the seminars, I will raise questions. So I have to leave my profile so that people will remember me. So actually, it was during my time that we created the Malaysia caucus on the hill. Oh, okay. It was deserted. Okay. I don't know what happened after that, but the Malaysia caucus was represented by a few senators and congressmen. Oh, okay. Their function was to promote Malaysia. All right. So all right. I think I became my faith became more well known around the circle, around Congress circle, chief of staffs and all that through this kind of thing. Yeah, when I took over your post some years down the road, of course they kept mentioning your name, in this group, etc. I think there were some senators from, I think I'm not sure whether it's actually Micronesia or somewhere. I think they were also representative of members in that group. Yeah, you're right. So Washington, yeah, it stands out as an interesting place, right? But I also understand that, apart from this posting that, we as diplomats go out, I understand that you also had some very unusual stints. You went to war-torn Sudan, I understand, with the late, Tansika Media as the Secretary General who took over Tanzania in Sudan later. Could you tell us what was all this about? Because even I don't know what was this mission all about.
Actually, I was at my the tail end of my PhD in Canterbury, UK, when I was warned that I have to come back immediately because I'm going to Africa.
Okay.
Yeah, so I said, what? Am I going to the African nest or what? And then it turned out that uh, the funny thing was there was this lady among our friends who could read the palm.
Okay.
And she said, you're going back and immediately you're going to join a very exclusive group of 10 people to a place called A. So I said, ASEAN, whatever, Austria, what you're going to do a very special mission. So when I went, immediately the KSU Tansi come and call me. We are going to Africa. We are going to Sudan. I said, what for? He said, we have to help in the peace process between Sudan and the South. Mm. At the time, there was only one Sudan, and they were having problems with the South of the rebels. So we are going to be the mediator. Okay. So they just trained first with Datuk Taib. Who's Datuk Taib? KSU3. Oh, okay, okay, yeah. I'm not secret. No, so we went, but in order to go to Sudan, to be a mediator between these people, uh, the North was headed by uh, um, uh, the dead, and now I think no, it's not yet. This General Omar Bashir, and then he has his prime minister or his from the National Front. His name is I think he died already. Hassan Turabi. Hassan Turabi, yeah. Mm. And we were also to bring him together with the South leader who was John Garang. Mm. So we went to see these three people separately. All right. So before that, we had to go to see Mandela. Mm. Because this is not Africa. Is not we don't want to offend anybody. Of course. So Mandela was a great Mandela. Then he should know what's going on. So we went to his palace in South Africa. We went and told him what we were doing. And he said it was a good job. We told him why we were doing it. Okay. Basically, we're doing it because we have interest in, especially in South Sudan. Okay. Petronas. All right. And then they have other resources there. Mm-hmm. And we have our national interest. Okay. To make sure that Sudan is peaceful. Mm-hmm. So with Mandela's blessing, we flew on a private small plane to Sudan. Met this Turabi and Bashir separately. Very nice people. And then we also went down to see John Garang. Okay. And a few months later, we brought this book to KL. Oh, okay. That they discuss more. Quietly, we discuss more. And I think in the end, that was in 1997. Oh, 97. 2005, I think they had a peace agreement. Yeah. Between the two. And 2011, I suppose, the independence, the South Sudan became independent. Mm. That was so we have a little bit of role in it to mediate to bring people together. Okay, all right. That was the unique task that we had to do. But this was purely a Malaysian initiative, or was it mandated by UN or something else? I believe it was a deeply Malaysian initiative. Okay. Perhaps it has got to do with Petronas because they wanted to make sure that their interests are protected. Okay. Yeah. Plus, anyway, Malaysia was quite strong in this South-South cooperation, and Dr. Mahathir built the profile of the country quite high, so it was quite natural, to be seen as someone. Yeah. We were not aligned. The beauty of non-aligned was that when I was in Washington again, we go back. I had a call from some top guns in Pentagon. They came to see me at the office, and they say, "We want to help North Korea." There was a famine. Yeah. And we could only reach you because you have relations with North and South, so it's easier for us to come down. The idea was we wanted to provide assistance to North Korea. Okay. During this time of famine, but because they had this particular peculiar relations with North Korea, So we became the like in between person.
Oh,
So we were supposed to assist. We assisted the U.S. Washington in uh, bringing stuff to North Korea. So basically, crude oil
oh,
to keep the people warm.
okay, all right.
It was bought by the Americans from us.
All right. All right. So this, yeah, I mean, the being non-aligned has this advantages, right? I mean, you're not seen as threatening to anybody.
Yeah.
You're not aligned to anyone
Yeah.
in particular. So, yeah, I think that was. I think probably that's also the reason why later Kuala Lumpur was chosen as a place to for North Korea to meet, South Korea and the West, so that they could become part of the ASEAN Regional Forum.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, I think they have already established this familiarity with us.
You're the accent expert. I never did anything about accent.
Yeah, that was one of those things that I had to deal with.
Yeah, yeah.
The secret meetings in Kuala Lumpur. And that.
Mhm.
So now I'm putting it all together.
Yeah.
This had, because your mission had preceded
Mhm.
this familiarity later on.
Mhm.
It became easier and we could be,
Mhm.
But coming on to other things, um, diplomacy. Well, you would agree with me that you can never be sure what's going to happen
Mhm.
the next day, right?
Mhm.
I mean, for that reason, you really cannot have an SOP, hard and fast written kind of thing, because the day could begin with something different, normal, and then become a really chaotic crisis. Could come in different forms. But I suppose through our careers, through the processes that we go through, and the evolution that we also undergo as from junior to more senior and seasoned diplomats, we would have somehow picked some idea of how to handle this kind of crisis. Coming back to the time when you were, I think there are two events probably that you had, been involved in. Maybe it's interesting for people to know. When you were DCM or Deputy Ambassador in Washington, I think that was when 9/11 happened.
Yes.
It's a traumatic global experience. We were there as well. Malaysians were also worried, unsure what was happening and all that. And many years down the road, you mentioned that when you finally became ambassador to The Hague, probably thinking that you're going to have a nice quiet posting, right? After all, hey, nothing happens, right? Predictable country. But then, as I said, uncertainty can always creep in, and May 17 happened. And you had, of course, you're very far away from where the thing happened, but for some reason, which you will explain to us, I hope, that you became in the middle of this thing as well, in a some of kind of some sort of a crisis. So I think these were two big types of human-based crisis that that we as diplomats, ambassadors have to deal with. Maybe you can take us through, both there one by one, perhaps. Starting with the 9/11.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, 9/11 was a very nice sunny morning. People were jogging along the Potomac. Suddenly, we saw a black cloud in the direction of the Pentagon.
Okay.
Very black cloud. Apparently, black smoke. Apparently, the plane just crashed into the base of the Pentagon.
Oh.
At the same time, when the other plane crashed into the Twin Towers.
All right.
When you switch on the radio, your car radio, because I was on my way to work, I could hear that there was something was going on. So when I reached the office, that the Israel embassy was our neighbor. We saw a lot of soldiers on the roof. They were just holding their machine guns and all that, trying to protect the embassy. So then, what what was our function when there's a crisis like this, when all planes were not supposed to fly? We opened. A little bit of SOP is also important, because this was something we did. We were trained in Samudra. We opened our operations room. Okay. Operations room, because we know that this is going to involve a lot of Malaysians in the US, students, and people who are working. So we opened our operations room and we divided our work. We have someone whose job is just to speak to the press. No one else is supposed to, among us is supposed to speak to the press.
Okay.
Except for this person.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have people who take care of the data of all these Malaysians. The student department also got involved. So there was this thing that was going on at the embassy. Operations from then, 2017. I think I've spoken so many times already about 2017. Basically, it's about repatriation of bodies. So this is something very, very sad, very heavy. Bringing about 20, 30 bodies home. But every time the body comes, just don't send them home immediately. You put them in mortuary. We did the prayers, we did the bed body. So this is very traumatic for me because I was home alone. I am afraid of this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Afraid of dead bodies, but somehow I got used to it. But at first, I couldn't sleep the whole month. That's why when you called me, you were as you African American. You said I heard you were going to the US quietly. I said no, I got my permission to take a break. So it was a really big thing. It happens to all of us anyway. Lucky on it. It makes you a more richer person in experience.
So I suppose along the way, because I mean in a way perhaps the 9/11 sort of prepared you for a little bit for this kind of human tragedy kind of thing. I mean, people are worried, sad, scared. You got to assure them. You got to assure yourself as well.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very difficult to tell. Just like this when you're talking to over the mic or the camera. But when you're actually living it, I suppose it's a very different thing, right? No, I mean, can you imagine you are sitting happily in The Hague and this happens in Kiev, and then
But back to the Netherlands because the plane was from Amsterdam.
Amsterdam, and many Dutch were also killed in it, and things. Yeah, I mean, we can talk at length on this issue. And I know you've spoken many times. I don't want to do that, but you know, at the end of it, of course, we all diplomats will have to hang up their heads one day, right? And suppose it also happened to you and to me later on as well. But you reinvented yourself after diplomacy. I understand that you mentioned earlier you went back to university to take up a degree in law. Can you tell us about that and what are you doing right now?
Upon retirement, just before retirement, I applied to do law in UK. So I did my LLB, and then I did my bar training. Then I came back, and then I was offered this this job to be a member of a team member to defend the president of Kosovo and three others.
Okay.
They were president. They were being elected for war crimes.
All right.
So we became we formed a team. The team to defend one of the four. So this thing is going on since 2020. Should be over by next year, I suppose.
So you're acting as a lawyer.
We are acting as a defense lawyer.
Defense lawyer.
Defense lawyer.
Defending the Kosovars.
Defending one of them. Yeah.
This is a European initiative.
This was a European initiative. Yes, European initiative.
Where is this trial taking place?
The seat of the court is the Kosovo Special Chambers is in The Hague.
Okay.
Yeah. Is about war crimes. See, what happened was that initially the Serbs were being prosecuted.
Okay.
Charged and all that, charged and prosecuted. Now the Serbs managed to get evidence to bring the reverse to charge the Albanian leaders who all the rebel leaders, the Kosovo soldiers who became presidents and members of cabinet, they were now charged.
Okay.
Yeah. So the thing is ongoing.
So you say the trial is about to finish now?
Is wrapping up.
Wrapping up 5 years long, really.
Yes.
I suppose then they will face
The
sentences.
judgment.
Okay.
It's very good experience for me personally. Certainly from your basic law, you start to do international.
International.
Yeah. It's very
very interesting too. I mean, I cannot remember. I don't think anyone has made that kind of transition that you have. But you're acting on your own. I mean, you're not representing the Malaysian government.
No, no, no.
You're just
We are member of a defense team.
okay. That means there are other
There are
nationalities.
there are other nationalities.
Oh, okay. All right. So that's interesting. So, diplomat, now lawyer, international law on top of it. A war crime tribunal. I think it's all very difficult to get our heads together. But that's kind of thing that's very interesting and very encouraging. That that there's still something that diplomats can do after they retire,
Yes.
provided they prepare. But now let's come to the main issue. We started by saying about women in diplomacy. There is this notion that there are challenges that women face, or perhaps they get advantages, or something like that. But you have spent a whole lifetime in this business. Uh, are there any challenges? Are there really challenges, or do you think that being a woman offers you some advantages or something? When you first invited me to join this conversation on women in diplomacy, I felt that you regret it because I don't believe in women. Women's special why women should be treated in a special way. Because I believe that throughout my career, I did everything as a person, not because as a woman. If there was success or there were failures, it was because of my person, not because of my gender. Okay. So along the way, of course, you have people who believes in the rights of women, women's day. I always hope that there will never be any more a women's day, which means that all women don't want to talk about it anymore because we are all above it already. So that is my take on women, no? Women issues. But maybe I don't know. I don't feel any difference between women discriminated or given special treatment. I can't remember. I was just an officer like you. Yeah, no, that's exactly it. Because I mean, I was puzzled when people asked me this question because all the 30 over years that I've been in the ministry, I've never seen our colleagues in terms of gender or race even. I mean, I saw them just as another colleague doing the job that I probably may have to do, in different situations. And you have shown that, MA17 and 9/11 and John Garra and all these things. You just did it just like any other diplomat would have done. Okay. So that's very good to know. So diplomacy doesn't mean that women. I mean, at least from your perspective, there are no additional challenges in that sense. But neither does it confer you an advantage in that sense. But it all depends on how you yourself carry yourself out as a diplomat. That's right. Yeah. So that's very interesting. Any you spent what 30 over years in the foreign service. What was what would you say would be your takeaway or some final thing that you want to say? I think this career is this career in foreign service. The beauty is not just going abroad. When I was back home, I was heading the diplomacy institute. I enjoyed that very much. I was also heading the policy and strategy department. I liked that very much. But one thing I can carry that I really can was happy about was I was one of those 12 people who was elected to go to Oslo to receive the Nobel Peace Prize on behalf of the OPCW. Oh, this Organization for the Prevention of Chemical Weapons. I think that I just that was the cut my career, and then was time to go. So I was right after all, trailblazing woman you are indeed. Well, Dr. Fauziah, thank you very, very much for having joined me here. As I said, this is my first attempt at live stream. I hope this has been was interesting to me and opened my mind so much. I hope it was also interesting to you. And I hope our listeners will also share. And for those of you at home or watching this, please hit the like button now. Put in the comments and I shall see you again next time. Thank you.